I buried my daughter on a gray, desolate afternoon. The sky that day held not a single ray of sunlight, only heavy clouds looming overhead as if they too were weighed down by grief. A gentle breeze carried the cold through my skin, but I felt nothing. Around me, muffled sobs and murmured condolences filled the air, yet they were nothing more than distant echoes lost in the numbness consuming me. I stood motionless before the small grave, the final resting place of Ellie, the daughter I had loved more than my own life. My trembling hand reached out, fingers tracing the cold, unyielding stone where her name was etched. Just a week ago, I had held her in my arms, stroked her soft curls, kissed her forehead each night before bed. And now, Ellie was nothing more than a name, a mound of earth, and an emptiness that could never be filled. Family and friends approached me, one by one, placing a hand on my shoulder, offering words of comfort that I no longer had the strength to acknowledge. They stood beside me, but I knew none of them could truly understand the weight of this loss. It was too immense, too cruel. I glanced around, as if searching for something, or someone, but the space beside me remained empty. The hearse rolled away and the crowd slowly dispersed, leaving behind a silence so vast, so unnatural it sent a chill through me. A silence that should not have existed. I didn't need anyone to tell me what I was waiting for. I didn't need a reminder that I should not have been alone today. The phone in my pocket vibrated. I pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and in that instant, my breath caught in my throat. Busy with a meeting, I'll call you later. The words flickered before me, cruel and impersonal, like a twisted joke. Busy with a meeting, a short, cold message. No apology, no explanation. I blinked, forcing myself to swallow the pain rising in my chest. No, he wouldn't, he couldn't. My gaze drifted down to the small text beneath the message, and in that moment, the ache in my chest shifted into something else entirely. A location tag. Not an office building, not a conference room. A luxury beachfront resort. I clenched my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white, my vision blurring, not with tears, but with the sudden, searing heat of rage. I was standing here, before our daughter's grave, trying to hold myself together amid the wreckage of my life, while he was lounging on a sunbed, sipping cocktails under the tropical sun. A gust of wind swept through the cemetery, stirring the white flowers on the grave. I stood still for a few seconds, but not out of sorrow anymore. The pain had given way to something else, something fiercer, something burning. I took a deep breath, shoved my phone into my coat pocket. Did he really think he could disappear like this, that I would just cry, grieve, and accept it? He was wrong. I sat in the empty house, the dim yellow light casting a suffocating stillness over the space. The laptop screen glowed before me, each image slicing through my chest like a blade. Ethan hadn't just betrayed me, he had betrayed Ellie. In the final months of her life, while I sat by her bedside, waiting for a miracle that would never come, he was with her. When I called him in the dead of night, pleading for him to come home because Ellie didn't have much time left, he turned off his phone. When I buried my face in my hands, clutching my daughter's tiny fingers, praying for just a moment of his presence, he was lying on sun-drenched beaches, sipping wine with his mistress. I closed my eyes, a fresh wave of pain crashing through my chest, but this time I refused to let it drown me. I couldn't sink into grief any longer. I couldn't let this loss break me. I had to do something. I had to know the full truth. I opened our joint bank account, something I had never thought to do before, because I had trusted Ethan. Trusted that no matter how strained our marriage had become over time, he was still a responsible man. But the numbers on the screen told a different story. Suspicious transactions, large withdrawals labeled as business expenses, a flood of charges from five-star hotels, luxury restaurants, high-end jewelry stores. Nothing related to work, nothing related to Ellie. Just lavish spending I had never known about. I scrolled down to the most recent transactions and saw a name that appeared over and over again, Madeline Pierce. My grip on the mouse tightened, my mind blank for a few seconds. I copied the name and searched for it on social media. A profile appeared instantly. Her profile picture showed a young woman with golden blonde hair, striking blue eyes, and a radiant smile. I scrolled through her timeline, feeling an icy chill spread through me as I saw the photos. Ethan. He was in dozens of them, relaxed, carefree, enjoying vacations I had never even known about. He looked nothing like a man who had just lost his child. He was grinning beside Madeline, their hands entwined on a yacht, embracing on a sunlit beach, raising glasses of wine in candlelit restaurants. The most recent photo had been posted just 3 days ago. The same day I was in the hospital making arrangements for Ellie's funeral. I clenched my fists, my breathing ragged. The comments flashed before my eyes, each word like a stab to the chest. It's amazing to have a man who spoils you like this. Such a dream vacation, thank you my love. Ethan responded with sweet words, heart emojis, and promises of more trips to come. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There was no room for doubt anymore. He hadn't just betrayed me. He hadn't just lied to me about work. He had abandoned his own daughter to live a lavish life with another woman. A chilling realization crawled down my spine. This wasn't just an affair. The money he had withdrawn wasn't just for hotels and romantic dinners. I stared at the balance of our bank account. The money that should have gone to Ellie's medical bills, to her painful treatments, to the slim chance of her survival, was gone. Rage ignited within me like fire. I couldn't just sit here and let this be forgotten. I needed more than social media photos, more than credit card statements. I needed undeniable proof. I opened my browser, my hands trembling as I typed in a search. After a few minutes, I found the name I was looking for. Eleanor Finch, a private investigator with glowing reviews for uncovering financial fraud and infidelity. I hesitated for just a second, then pressed the call button. After a few rings, a calm, steady voice answered. "This is Eleanor Finch, how can I help you?" I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to stay even. "I need you to find out everything about my husband." I stared at my phone screen, the message already typed but not yet sent. Just one press, and Ethan would receive it, and my plan would begin. For the past 3 days, I had worked relentlessly with Eleanor, gathering everything I needed to ensure Ethan had no way out. Suspicious financial transactions, luxury hotel receipts, intimate photos of him and Madeline, and most damning of all, the emails he had sent her. Promises of a new life, a fresh start, a future where Ellie and I had never existed. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The anger still burned in my chest, but I refused to let it control me. I wouldn't storm in recklessly. I would do this perfectly, step by step, leaving him with no way out. I opened my eyes and pressed send. "Ethan, I've been thinking a lot. We need to talk. I don't want us to end things this way. Meet me at the vacation home this weekend. We need a chance to work things out." It took him less than a minute to respond. "I think so too, I'll be there." So easy it was almost frightening. Ethan thought I was hesitant, that I was softening. He had no idea I was prepared for everything. I carefully packed all the evidence into a leather folder, including the last video I had recorded of Ellie. Her giggles echoing in the garden, her curls bouncing in the golden afternoon light, her bright eyes lighting up whenever I called her name. I knew Ethan wouldn't be able to watch it without feeling something. But his guilt wasn't my concern. I wanted him to understand that everything he had done would have consequences. The weekend arrived faster than I expected. I drove to the vacation home. A place that had once been filled with our happiest family memories. Now, it was nothing more than the stage for Ethan's downfall. Inside, I switched on the lights and arranged everything neatly on the dining table, the folder of evidence, my laptop, and a bottle of his favorite wine. I wanted him to feel at ease, to believe for just a moment that things were in his control, before realizing he had walked straight into a perfect trap. The crunch of tires on gravel echoed from outside. I took a deep breath, composing myself just as the door swung open. Ethan stepped inside, carrying himself with the same unshakable confidence as always. He wore a light blue dress shirt, khaki pants, and loafers, looking more like he was arriving for a casual date than a serious conversation about the ruins of our marriage. "Honey," he said, flashing that familiar smile, as if we were still a normal couple. I didn't answer. I simply gave him a small, unreadable smile and gestured for him to sit. He pulled out a chair and leaned back comfortably. "I'm glad you changed your mind. I know things have been difficult, but I believe we can still—" I slid a folder across the table, cutting him off. "Read this, then we'll talk." His smile faltered for just a moment, but he picked up the folder and flipped it open. I stared at him as he flipped through each page. Bank statements, hotel receipts, transactions under the name Madeline Pierce, intimate photos of him and her. One by one, Every detail of the secret life he had tried so hard to hide was now laid bare before him. He threw the folder onto the table, his face drained of color. "Where did you get this?" I tilted my head slightly, my voice cold. "Did you really think I would never find out? Ethan, you're not as smart as you think you are." He opened his mouth, about to say something, but I raised a hand to silence him. Without a word, I picked up the remote and turned on the TV. The video began to play. Ellie, in her little blue dress, ran through the garden, her laughter ringing out like music. "Mommy, look at me!" Her voice was bright, full of joy. The scene shifted. Ellie curled up in my lap, hugging her favorite stuffed bear. Her eyes shining with love as she gazed at me. I didn't look at Ethan, but I could feel him freeze in place. I heard his breathing grow unsteady, saw his fingers tremble against the table. I turned off the video. There was no need to drag it out any longer. "Where were you when she needed you?" I asked, my voice devoid of anger, devoid of pain. All that remained was emptiness. He said nothing. His head dropped, as if searching for an excuse, but we both knew that no words could justify what he had done. I slid another folder toward him. "I've already sent these to your company's board of directors. They'll soon know about the money you've been embezzling, and don't expect to escape the authorities either. I've reported everything to the police. That perfect life you built on lies? It's about to come crashing down, Ethan." His eyes widened in panic. "Evelyn, please, we can talk. I can fix this." I stood, looking down at him from above. "You took everything from me," I said slowly, deliberately. "Now it's your turn to pay the price." Then I turned and walked away, leaving him there, alone, surrounded by the ruins of his own making. That morning the city felt as if it had just awakened after a storm. And on the front page of every major newspaper, across every online news site, one name appeared over and over again. Ethan Carter. Ethan Carter under investigation for corporate embezzlement. Man who abandoned his family accused of fraud and infidelity. Ethan Carter, from financial mogul to exposed betrayer. I sat at the dining table, sipping my coffee, quietly reading each headline. Ethan's face dominated the front pages. Him in one of his expensive suits, his once confident expression now pale and shaken. Wedged between two officers as they escorted him out of his office building. Just hours ago he had been a respected figure in the financial world, a man who exuded power and control. But now everything had crumbled. Eleanor had been right. His company's board of directors couldn't ignore the evidence I had provided. Once the financial reports were reviewed, they uncovered a trail of suspicious transactions, missing funds and forged contracts. What I had found in our joint account was only the tip of the iceberg. Ethan had embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars from his own company to finance his extravagant life with Madeline. I wasn't surprised when I heard the police had arrested him at his office. There was no escape for him now. The images of him being led away under the blinding flashes of cameras, surrounded by jeering former colleagues and employees, filled me with a cold satisfaction. He was no longer the powerful man I once knew. He was nothing more than a disgraced fraud, stripped bare before the world. My phone buzzed. I glanced down at the screen. "Ethan Carter is calling." I set my coffee down and stared at the name flashing across the screen. This was the third time he had called since his arrest. I could only imagine his desperation, his frantic attempts to grasp onto any last shred of hope. I let the phone ring until it went silent. A minute later, a voicemail notification appeared. I didn't listen to it. I had spent far too much time waiting for his explanations. When I had begged him to come home for Ellie, when I had sat alone in the hospital, when I had arranged our daughter's funeral by myself. Where had he been? Back then my phone had buzzed too, but only with messages telling me he was busy. Busy with work. Busy with meetings. Busy with things that had never even existed. Now I was the one who was busy? I stood up, picked up my phone, and blocked his number. On the TV screen, the morning news continued covering the arrest. A brief interview flashed by. A former employee of Ethan's company stood in front of the camera, his face filled with anger. He always acted like the perfect leader, a brilliant executive, but in the end, he was just a thief, someone who exploited people's trust to fill his own pockets. Another comment played from a financial expert. With the amount he embezzled, Ethan Carter could be facing at least 10 years in prison. This is a major shock to the business world, but perhaps not so surprising to those who truly knew him. I turned off the TV. I didn't need to hear any more. I knew he would keep trying to reach me. Maybe he thought I would pity him. Maybe he believed I would forgive him. But Ethan Carter had been dead to me for a long time. He had taken everything from me. My marriage, my trust, our daughter. But I had reclaimed the one thing that mattered most, my freedom. Ethan could scream, he could beg, he could try to escape the consequences. But he would never get a response from me again. I stood in the middle of the living room of what had once been my home, the emptiness pressing down on me. Everything remained just as it was the last time Ellie had been here. The couch where she used to curl up and watch cartoons. The corner of the wall where I had marked her height year after year. The faint scent of vanilla still lingering in the kitchen from the cookies we used to bake together on weekends. But this house was no longer a safe haven. It was a memory, a past, a weight I could no longer carry. I had made my decision. I was going to sell the house. Not because I wanted to forget Ellie, but because I needed to move forward. I couldn't live in a space haunted by what could have been, in rooms filled only with absence. I needed a fresh start, somewhere untouched by ghosts of the past. The sale happened faster than I expected. A young family, a husband, wife, and their 2 small children, fell in love with the house the moment they stepped inside. I watched them, and for a moment I saw a reflection of my past self. A hopeful mother, an innocent child, a home waiting to be built. When I signed the final papers, I didn't feel lost. I felt relief. I used part of the money to begin a new chapter of my life. But the majority of it? I donated to something I knew Ellie would be proud of. A foundation to help families with terminally ill children. I named it Ellie's Light. I know the pain of parents who have to watch their child suffer, powerless to stop it. I was once one of them. I spent countless hours in hospital rooms, watching Ellie fight for every single day, every single hour. I know the crushing weight of medical bills piling up, the despair of realizing that life-saving treatments are just out of reach because of finances. I can't change my past, but I can help others so they don't have to endure the same helplessness. At first, the foundation was just a simple idea, a fund to help struggling families cover hospital bills, a program to provide parents with access to the latest treatment options. But it grew faster than I ever imagined. Old friends, former colleagues, even complete strangers who heard my story stepped forward, wanting to help. Doctors and nurses from the hospital where Ellie had been treated reached out, eager to collaborate and offer the best medical support possible to other children in need. Local business owners started making donations, organizing fundraisers to expand our programs. Within just a few months, Ellie's Light was no longer just a small initiative. It had become a true lifeline, a place where parents could turn when they felt like they had nowhere else to go. I no longer felt trapped in my grief. I felt a purpose. As my life slowly found its rhythm again, I realized that I needed to do something for myself too. For too long I had merely survived, just getting through each day. But now, I wanted to live. I moved into a small apartment in the suburbs. A quiet but not isolated place where I could wake up to the morning sun streaming through my window. Where I could start over, without being surrounded by the weight of old memories. I signed up for a photography class. I had never seriously picked up a camera before, but now I saw it as a way to appreciate life differently, to capture the beauty in the small, fleeting moments. I started taking morning walks, photographing the simple yet meaningful things around me. Wildflowers growing by the roadside, children laughing in the park, an elderly couple holding hands beneath golden autumn leaves. I made new friends. People who knew nothing about my past, who didn't look at me with pity or sadness. We talked about movies, books, places we wanted to visit. I realized that life wasn't just about loss. There were still beautiful things waiting for me to discover. There were still nights when I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Ellie. I missed her. I missed her radiant smile, her joyful laughter. But that longing no longer felt like a void swallowing me whole. It had become a gentle light, like the glow of a sunset at the end of the day. Still there, still present, but no longer something that made me collapse. One afternoon I sat on my balcony, a cup of tea in hand, watching the trees sway gently in the wind. My phone buzzed with a message from a mother my foundation had just helped. "Thank you, Evelyn. Because of Ellie's light, my son now has access to a treatment we never thought possible." I don't know how to express my gratitude. I set my phone down and looked up at the sky. I thought of Ellie, of the sparkle in her eyes whenever I told her about the good things in the world. "I did it, Ellie. I hope you're proud of me." That morning, in the early days of winter, I found the letter in my mailbox, a plain brown envelope, the handwriting messy and uneven. But I didn't need to look at the sender's name to know who it was from. Ethan Carter. I stood there, the envelope in my hands, the crisp morning air slipping past my collar and into my coat. I hadn't answered a single one of his calls since his arrest. I had blocked his number, erased any way for him to reach me. But now, he had found another way. I walked inside, set the envelope on the table and stared at it as if it might burst into flames right before my eyes. I didn't want to read it, but I couldn't ignore it, either. Finally, I pulled a letter opener from the drawer and sliced the envelope open with a swift motion, pulling out the folded sheet of paper inside. "Evelyn, I don't know if you'll read this. Part of me hopes you'll throw it into the fire the moment you see my name. Another part hopes you'll read it to the end. Either way, I have to write this. Because if I don't, I will carry it to my grave. I know I've made mistakes that can never be undone. But there's something I never told you. Something you may never forgive me for, and I understand that. I could have saved Ellie." My fingers clenched the edge of the paper. My heart stopped. After Ellie was admitted to the hospital for the last time, I had a secret meeting with her doctor. They told me there was an experimental treatment, a new therapy that might have given her a chance. It wasn't guaranteed, but it was hope. "I didn't tell you. I didn't tell you because I was scared. I was afraid that if we tried and it failed, you would never forgive me for giving you false hope. I was afraid you would hate me even more than you do now. But now, as I sit in this tiny cell, surrounded by four walls with nowhere to escape, I finally see the truth I should have faced long ago. I made the wrong choice. Not because you would hate me, but because I stole our daughter's last chance. I don't expect your forgiveness, I just need you to know that I have lived with this guilt every single day. I have nothing left. But the greatest loss wasn't my career or my reputation. It was Ellie. And I was the one who destroyed her only hope. I'm sorry, Evelyn. Whether you believe it or not, I truly am. Ethan." I set the letter down. The first feeling that washed over me wasn't rage or hatred. It was emptiness. I should have been furious. I should have screamed, torn the letter apart, broken something. But instead I just sat there, motionless. Ellie could have had a chance. Not a certainty, but a chance. And Ethan took that away from her. I didn't know how long I sat like that. The apartment around me felt eerily quiet, the ticking of the clock on the wall the only reminder that time was still moving forward, whether I was ready or not. Maybe this was why he had tried so desperately to contact me. Not to beg for forgiveness for the sins I already knew about, but for this. The truth he had kept buried for so long. A week later I scheduled a prison visit. I wasn't sure why I was doing it. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to hear his voice. But some part of me knew that if I didn't go, I would never truly put an end to this. The prison was cold and sterile, just as I had imagined. I sat in the visitation room, separated from the man I once called my husband, by a thick sheet of glass. Ethan entered, dressed in a wrinkled orange jumpsuit, his body thinner, his face hollow. He looked at me, his eyes empty, exhausted. No trace left of the arrogant man I once knew. I picked up the phone, he did the same. For a moment he said nothing, he just stared, as if he couldn't believe I had actually come. I looked at him. Not with anger, not with pity, just with the quiet acknowledgement that this would be the last time I ever saw him. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you," I said, my voice steady, emotionless. Ethan took a shaky breath. "I understand. But I can let go." His eyes flickered with something, maybe surprise, maybe relief, but I didn't give him the chance to say anything else. I placed the phone back on the receiver, stood up, and walked away without looking back. This time I was truly leaving the past behind. In the days following my visit with Ethan, I felt something shift inside me. Not an overwhelming wave of emotion, not a sudden moment of clarity, but a quiet, creeping sense of relief. I no longer felt anger when I thought about the past. No more sleepless nights fueled by hatred. No more feeling trapped in an endless cycle of grief and betrayal. For the first time in years, I felt free. Without Ethan. Without the weight of losing Ellie crushing me every second of the day. I began to live. I poured myself into Ellie's light not just because it was my daughter's legacy, but because it gave me purpose. The foundation grew beyond what I ever imagined, helping more families than I thought possible. We didn't just provide financial support, we offered counseling, connected parents so they wouldn't feel alone in their fight. Every time I saw a child receive treatment their family never thought they could afford, I felt Ellie's presence. She was still here. She was still alive, through the good I could do for others. I no longer stayed in the small apartment. After much thought, I decided to move to a seaside town. A place filled with peace and light. I wanted a completely fresh start. Not to run away, but to embrace what life still had to offer me. Every morning I walked along the shoreline, feeling the soft sand beneath my feet and breathing in the salty ocean air. I continued taking photographs, capturing the simple yet meaningful moments. An elderly couple holding hands as they strolled along the beach, a child building a sandcastle with pure joy, the waves crashing against the shore like the steady heartbeat of the ocean. I once thought happiness was something I would never feel again. But now it was slowly finding its way back to me little by little. I also opened my heart to new people. Not all at once, but gradually, I allowed myself to reconnect with the world around me. I made friends with neighbors, with the people I met at the little cafe I visited every morning. I learned to enjoy casual conversations, no longer feeling awkward or afraid when someone asked about my past. The past was no longer an open wound. It had healed, becoming a part of me, but it no longer defined who I was. One late afternoon I walked along the beach, my bare feet sinking into the cool sand. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange, its glow reflecting on the shimmering waves. I stopped, gazing out at the horizon, letting the sea breeze tangle my hair. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small seashell, rolling it gently between my fingers. Ellie had loved collecting seashells. I remembered how she used to run along the shore, laughing with delight whenever she found one with a unique shape. I smiled, lifting my eyes to the sky, where the sun was slowly dipping below the horizon. I did it, sweetheart. I hope you're proud of me. My words dissolved into the air, carried away by the ocean breeze. But I knew Ellie had heard them. And for the first time in so many years I truly felt at peace. Life isn't always fair, and sometimes it takes away the things we cherish most. But from pain and loss we can choose how we rise. Evelyn Carter's story is not just one of betrayal and grief, but a journey of rediscovery. From a woman drowning in sorrow, to someone strong enough to let go of the past and create new meaning in her life. In reality, we all carry wounds, but what truly matters is how we overcome them to find light again. Evelyn Carter's story is one of loss and hope, of betrayal and freedom. What do you think of her choices? Would you be able to forgive if you were in her place? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel to hear more stories about life, family, and the strength to overcome challenges.